Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Washington Post makes surprise endorsement for Montgomery County Executive, but in the county council races, it's mostly chalk. Valerie Ervin picks up the mantle of the fallen Kevin Kamenetz, and how serious is the stroke suffered by Congressman Anthony Brown? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, former Maryland Assistant Secretary for Business, Bill Askinazi, and political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. And welcome back. As Josh Kurtz wrote in Maryland Matters, that giant sucking sound last weekend may have been the implosion of 4 of the 6 Democratic candidates in the Democratic primary race for Montgomery County Executive. Because the Washington Post gave its endorsement to political neophyte businessman David Blair. Susan, according to the Post, David Blair is a dynamic political newcomer with a business acumen, energy, and passion for innovation. In making this choice, is the Post implying that the other candidates just aren't up to the task of being county executive?
The only person that they really brutally made comments about was Mark Elbridge, and his affinity to say no to things reflexively. And they mentioned, of all things, the Fillmore in Silver Spring, which he really didn't want. He is probably, if there is someone on the council is known as a NIMBY, that would be Mark. They said very complimentary things about Rose Krasnow after they endorsed him. They were positive about her. They said some negative things about Mark, and then they mentioned the others in passing. The thing that Democrats are having a problem with David is, well, he was a Republican. He switched to the party, but he doesn't bother voting, no matter what he is. So, I think there are those who are really active who are saying, maybe we could handle you if you had switched parties, but at least vote, show some interest. And he certainly has money. The last I heard was $3 million he spent. So, it's going to be an interesting race. That's all.
So Elbridge, so what I got from the Post endorsement is that they were suggesting it's time for a new direction. So Mark Elbridge seems to be the next candidate in line and the most popular candidate in line. I mean, will this be enough to push David Blair into the office of county executive?
No. Mark has some good credentials, as well as all the other candidates. Also, I'm surprised about the Post because they gave Blair sort of a pass on some past misdeeds that he's done, and some things that weren't perfect, and some of also his policies with regard to workers and their rights. And in giving him a pass, you're not telling the whole story. That's up to the Post to endorse who they want to endorse, but to go negative, totally negative on Mark was something I didn't like.
But don't you agree that they're saying that it's time for a new direction?
No, we have
I want to go to Mark on this. Mark, isn't there a hidden message in this endorsement? Because this is what I read, was that there is an ineptitude by the 3 council members who are running for office, that they didn't get an endorsement from the Post.
Certainly it's a diss to existing office holders, the fact that the Post doesn't think that they're up to the job of being county executive. It's kind of also, looming above all of this is the fact that, frankly, the Post's principal shareholder or owner is also contesting to do a rather large potential development here in Montgomery County.
So Bill, does the Post endorsement concerning the lack of business growth give David Blair an opportunity here? As I was trying to elicit from Elbridge, they're saying it's time for a new direction.
I agree with that. I think the county is in serious economic trouble. We've been in economic trouble for 20 years. The liberal policies have failed us. Here's what David Blair should do. You got to think out of the box. 1, the Agricultural Reserve has been the jewel of Montgomery County since 1980. That's when it was endorsed. Takes up 1/3 of the land area of the county. I'm all for favorable economic policies. Take planned communities, And if you're brave enough to put this on the table, and it used to be the jewel that you couldn't touch, take the agricultural reserve, carve it up in bits and pieces, have planned communities, you'll attract the young people to stay here after they work here. Hell knows we've got great education system, but we need people to stay here with affordable housing. 2, have a nightlife in Montgomery County. That means we were supposed to get an entertainment center and a community center, 12,000 people, sports teams on the campus of Johns Hopkins University. It was shot down by our county executive. Invest in that. Think out of the box. When you grow and you leave Montgomery County, people aren't coming back. The tax base is eroding. We're choking on traffic and we're choking on no growth policies. David Blair could be the very man to bring the county back around to a business sensible alternative.
What do you
know,
think about that?
Well, what I find interesting is ask Kathleen Matthews what a Washington Post endorsement means. Last time she got it over Jamie Raskin or David Trone. The other thing is, if you look at the value of a Post endorsement, someone I know did some analysis of where the Post is still red. That's Bethesda, Chevy Chase, Potomac, a little in Silver Spring. Once you go north of the Beltway, the Post doesn't have that much readership. So I think the value of the Post endorsement, despite what any of us think about any candidate, has lost its cachet, and I don't think it's as
But
valuable.
what is the message that the Post is sending? The message the Post is sending is that the current county council has not done a good job in directing and leading the business community
and
in
there are
Montgomery
those
County.
who say that with the vote of getting 3 terms, they made a comment about those
And-
3
and
ballots.
You got 30 seconds to
This
wrap
is
it
a
up.
message that the Post editorial page has had for several election cycles. They have been very critical of the way the county has been run. So in some respects, it's not surprising that they would go to somebody who wasn't part of the
Is
sort
it
of
a proxy
existing.
vote for whether Amazon will come to the county?
Well, you
that's
know what else?
That's the big
it's
question.
Youth, but Bill Frick is saying I'm even younger. I'm 43. P is 48.
Thank you,
so
Susan.
it isn't just youth.
Despite the fact that there were 50 candidates vying for election in the county council races, there weren't many surprises when the Post released their endorsements for those races. Elbridge, in the district-specific races, the Post endorsed all incumbents except in the District 1 race where no incumbent was running. Given the voter unrest, why should these guys be sent back to the council?
Voter unrest was last year's news. This year, we're talking about with term limitations already in place. They're looking at who we have in office, what kind of job they're doing, and they're saying the fact is that, no, we had some good people in office, let them run their term, because they didn't attack any of the candidates that were going for re-election. And they're saying, now we got term limits. That's what the citizens wanted. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here.
And a little experience is good to have on
Correct.
the council.
Susan, in District 1, Andrew Friedson won the endorsement of the Post. What do we know about Andrew?
Andrew
And is he the
Friedson-
best candidate?
I don't necessarily think so. Andrew grew up he's from Potomac. His parents are very wealthy and have very deep,
So
deep
that
roots
disqualifies
in
him
the
there.
community. No, and the endorsement was rather milquetoast. It says that his experience going over government budgets, they use the word combing government budgets, and in financing startup businesses, if he did that, it was probably his parents' money. But there was one
Well,
candidate.
that is
very
unfair.
unfair.
No,
That is
let
really
me
an
finish.
That's a really unfair.
Well,
since
let me finish.
since you don't know,
I
that's
know
a
who
very
he-
that's
but
that's
there
very
is
unfair.
one candidate, though, if you talk about what the Post is talking about, and that is Pete Fosselman. Pete has experience with the budget, being the mayor of Kensington, and he has a planning background. We are not going to have anyone on the council with any planning experience.
Pete-
And this was a race where there could be a good.
Pete Fosselman, the one who was quoted as saying that buses weren't mass transit, one of the things that Friedman has distinguished himself is Friedson has been the most pro-growth of the candidates running in that race.
Let me echo that. I met with Friedson, unlike you, for an hour. I sat down with him. I know his policies. He was the youngest. He works with the controller.
He works for Peter Frick.
He's also endorsed a lot of legislation that is now called the ABLE legislation for disabled people to get benefits at tax deferred. He's given new breath to pension benefits, and he's also pro-business. So I got to know him. To say that his parents are rich, that has nothing to do with the equation. He's the most hardworking young man,
He is,
and he
yes,
deserves a shot.
But there are those who know the insides and out of this race, saying that it's his parents and long-term connections that are helping
He's not
open
part
up
of the
doors.
machine, and you're bothered by that.
No, I'm not. And when you talk about growth, District 1 is really, really upset with Roger because of what he has done for growth. So in that sense, when you say he's pro-growth, that could hurt him in District 1.
All right, well, let's take a look at the
especially after Westport.
We need to take a look at the at-large races where the Post endorsed incumbent Hans Reimer, newcomers Gabe Albarons, Marilyn Balcom, and Evan Glass. What do we know about these picks, Susan?
Well, it's an interesting selection. You have one incumbent with Hans Reimer. You have Gabe Albarnos, the head of the rec department, who's a Latino. You have Marilyn Balcom, the head of the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber of Commerce, and you have Evan Glass, who is very active and is a married gay male who talks about his background. So you have 4 diverse candidates, and it's about the whole tent of the Democratic Party. I mean, they covered everything. And I thought it was the most interesting. I think there are some other qualified candidates who might have been endorsed, who could have been.
Well, there are only 32 of them running
I know.
for the at-large race.
Yes, I think Bill Conway is a very qualified person. But you know, I don't know. It's just interesting when you look at that and you see, well, there's the Democratic Party right there.
But let's look at this. 32 candidates.
33, isn't it?
33, 32, with term limitations, and everybody's now getting into the mix. That's a good thing. We don't have 1 or 2 or the usual suspects. And I'm not familiar with all of them, but I do know where we have a good mix of candidates. And so this upcoming primary election.
Why do they only run in the at-large race and not run in the district races? Why don't they challenge some of these incumbents who have repeatedly acted against business in Montgomery County?
Well, you know what,
Well, you got name recognition, number one, and also some of those candidates, they feel better running at large.
Well,
versus
but you
trying
know
to be in
what?
the
There
district.
is not one African American endorsed at large, and
Yeah.
that's interesting. And there are challenges in 1. There are challenges in 5. There's a challenge in 3. There are challenges out there in the Democratic primary. So,
And that's what I'm saying. You know, the
Bill,
point, the fact that we got a
wrap it
wide
up.
variety.
Well, you talk about diversity and that the number of candidates are important to have. I think the number of viewpoints are important to have. We need diversity. We need instead of a one-party rule in this county, we need to have more recognition that there are other viewpoints that need to be brought to the fore. So either we need a change in our campaign finance rules, we need airtime, equal airtime for candidates across the board, and we need to have a real diversity of opinion.
well, we
Let's
do
do that.
have
we need
possible
to
finance.
change. What we need to do
Let's
is
do
change
that
the county
nationally.
charter so that we have nine districts
Yeah.
instead of these 4 at-large seats, which are dominated by the east side of the county. When we come back from this short break, former council member Valerie Ervin takes up the challenge of running for governor, and how serious was the stroke suffered last week by Congressman Anthony Brown. And welcome back. As we return from the funeral of former Baltimore County Executive Kevin Kamenetz, Congressman Anthony Brown was reported to have suffered a minor stroke. Elbridge, what do we know about the seriousness of Representative Brown's condition?
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's only what I've read, and they're trying to keep this close to the vest. We've had a number of political figures, elected officials, that have suffered some health issues, and they try to manage it in-house first before they get the public involved. What Anthony's condition is, I'm not really sure about. I'm hoping for the best, but you know.
Well, Susan, you told me that you've spoken to the Brown family. What can you tell us?
I've communicated with Carmen, his wife, and she said he's doing well. She said she has taken away his phones and everything from him so that he gets rest. And, you know, I think there are times when people deserve privacy, and I think one of those is right now. Just like I think that perhaps there was too much invasion into Governor Hogan when he had his cancer. Health issues are personal. Everyone has said who knows the Browns that it was a minor stroke. You need to take care. You know, you don't want to stress, so we certainly don't want him to get another one. But he was in the military and just a couple of years ago. He's in great shape. He works out. You know, I wish him only the best.
Well, I think we all do. Prior to his tragic death, Baltimore County Executive Kevin Kamenetz was considered one of the top 2 candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for governor. Under Maryland law, his running mate, Valerie Ervin, had the choice of taking his place, which she has now done. Elbridge is an African-American woman. Will Ervin's candidacy further fracture the black vote?
I'm up in the air on that. I mean, she's wholeheartedly supported by Donna Edwards, and who asked her to get into the race. Some of us that are looking at elective office and the politics of it, questioning, I believe in Donna Edwards' sincerity, but I'm just questioning Valerie's total move on this part.
And what's interesting about Valerie is she started running for Congress and she dropped out because she couldn't raise any money. Valerie has consistently not raised money. It appears, it's still questionable though, that she will not get Kamenitz's money. And the thought first is he had made this big media buy, and what I've heard there is that he hadn't paid for it, so she doesn't have it. And she is saying in today's post that she is going to get Emily's List and outside money. So, you know, right now she has like $50,000. I wish her well with $50,000.
Mark, what impact will Valerie Ervin's decision to run have on this contest?
Well, I think a wise person who I've heard recently who described this race has said the reason she's running for governor is because she could. I think that this is probably the high point of her campaign in terms of attention, and it will recede from there. And so it really comes back to a race between Rushern Baker and Ben Jealous in the Democratic primary, but obviously Larry Hogan is a very strong favorite.
And what's interesting, I was at a gubernatorial candidates forum today at Asbury, and Valerie was not there, and she didn't even return calls about being there. So I think this will be interesting, but if she doesn't get a large infusion of money from outside the state, like through Emily's List, it's a non-go. It doesn't get off the ground.
But Casey, I'll just throw in a dissent in here. I think Valerie Ervin has every right as an individual to continue her campaign, and we don't know what went on between her and her running mate. We don't know what endorsements might be coming. I know how hard she worked. I knew Valerie from the days in Montgomery County. I may not agree with her policies, but she has every right. She put her heart and soul into the race, and many campaign stops. She has a right to continue on. That's what the rules say, as I understand.
That's right. And what's
She's following the
interesting
rules.
about it is Valerie, as I've said in the past, quit the school board to run for the county council, and then she quit the county council race. And her running mate is a Latina woman. First time it's an all-female candidate from Baltimore, and she quit her seat on the school board there so she could go to the central committee. So those are kind of bad omens.
I mean, we like her. We like her. They had that opportunity
Look,
to run.
Valerie's
we
a
do
good
that.
friend of ours.
Yeah.
She was a panelist on our show for many years, and she served admirably on the school board. She was elected to the school board. She was elected to the county council. So she does have some credentials. Well, you don't know what personal decisions go into these things, Susan. I mean, I think you're too dismissive of Valerie as a candidate.
I think it is too late in the game, but the ballots are going to say Kamenetz Ervin. Right. Although people supporting him in Baltimore County have already switched over, and at least one or two clubs and a senator there have now endorsed Senator Rich Manalino from Montgomery County, which I found most interesting when I read that.
My only point was, she's an excellent candidate. The timing is just not good.
Well, you can't pick the timing.
I do understand that.
In these circumstances.
But sometimes if I have the choice, I might say, let me hold off to another day. You know, let me have an effect in a different way than what she's doing now.
She's the only African American woman running in the race. Why is that a disqualification? Why can't she express her own voice because
I would love her to have that opportunity to express that voice. I'd love for her to be really part of the mix. Like we've said already, she's trying to get her campaign together. She's trying to get her campaign. She's trying to get her organization together.
Ben Jealous is carrying.
When did he become a woman?
No, Ben Jealous is
You
carrying
don't need to
Valerie
be-
Ervin's
you
message.
carry the
It
message.
has nothing to do with sex
No,
of
no,
the
Susan,
candidate.
you need to understand. We're talking to
Valerie
Republicans
was-
who
They don't know
who don't
the
carry
difference.
the woman's head.
They
They
don't.
don't know.
Valerie
They don't
was
know.
working with working families, and she's got credentials.
What I'm saying is she and Ben Jealous have essentially the same message. It's regardless of what their sex is, they have the same message.
Thank you, Susan. Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back from the short break. Welcome back. Now with parting shots, Bill Askinazi.
Thank you, Casey. I had the pleasure of having dinner with Ami Hober, who's running for Congress this last week. Got to know her very well. She's got incredible credentials. She's probably has a distinguished a career in the Army. She served under President Reagan as the first woman undersecretary, and she is very well versed with the issues facing Montgomery County, including the jobs, education, all the things we talked about here today. Hats off to her, and Ami Hober is a new voice and a deserving voice.
Thank you, Bill. Susan Heltemes, your parting shot.
First, I want to say the District 18 Breakfast Club is hosting Mark Elbridge and David Blair Wednesday at 7:30 at the Tasty Diner in Silver Spring. Everybody's invited. It should be a great show. Also today, my deepest sympathies go out to the students in Texas where the shooting took place again. Yet another shooting. Nothing has happened. May something happen this time. As of the time we taped the show on Friday night, there are at least 10 killed, and now they have found that he has put bombs maybe in his home. There are some at the school and surrounding areas. It's a very sick man, young man, 17 years old, who couldn't legally buy a gun but took them from his father's. Republicans, I speak to you, change your mind, do something. There are more young people shot thus far in schools than all the people killed in the military in the U.S. Something's wrong.
Thank you, Susan. Elbridge James, your parting shot.
My parting shot has to, again, go to our youth. They're the ones that are suffering these hardships. They're waking up, and they're saying to we older generation, you've had your turn, it's our turn next. Look for them to be moving in the next 5 to 7 years into leadership roles in both parties. If the Republicans are smart, Democrats are not going to have a choice, and this country will be great again because of our youth.
Thank you, Elbridge. Mark Uncapher, your parting shot.
This week, there was news from the Baltimore Police Department front. The police commissioner had to resign because it turns out he hadn't paid his income tax for a couple of years. But on a more positive note, there was bipartisan legislation that was signed by Governor Hogan to set up a commission to investigate corruption in the Baltimore Police Department. I think it's an excellent idea. I think it's important for us to do that. Because we're really not going to have the public safety and security in Baltimore and bring down the murder rate until people have confidence in their police department.
Thank you, Mark. As we sit here, we've been suffering through 5 days of rain, and we have 2 more days scheduled. I know all of us are beginning to feel a little bit waterlogged, but just think of it this way. We're getting in tune for when Amazon moves to Montgomery County and the Seattle weather is brought along with it so that we can get used to 60 days of rain every year, or whatever the incredible number is that they have in Seattle. So panel, thank you for being here. Good discussion. Elbridge, I'm worried because if we go for a youth movement, we're all gone. So I'm not sure if I want to push that too fast. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken. Thank you for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show.